Good evening and welcome to the West Orange Board of Education Public Board meeting on Monday, November 10th, 2025. I would like to thank all of you here in person and those watching from home for joining us tonight. I'd like to welcome my fellow board members as well as Mr. Moore, Ms. Flowers, and our student liaisons. Ms. Flowers, would you please take the roll call?
Good evening. Roll call, please. Dr. Bryant.
Here.
Mr. Stevenson.
Here.
Ms. Vera.
Here.
Mr. Ifker.
Here.
Mr. Rock.
Here.
Thank you. Notice of meeting. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests are discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of the Act, a written notice was sent to the Office of the Secretary of the Board on January 7th, 2025. That said notice was sent by regular mail to the West Orange Township Clerk and the editors of the West Orange Chronicle and by email to the Star Ledger. That said notice was posted in the lobby of the Administration Building of the Board of Education and posted on the district website. Please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and may be broadcasted on local TV and the district's website at a future date. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Flowers. In consideration of the closed and public meeting of October 27th, 2025, do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Ifker. Any comments? Hearing none, Ms. Flowers, please take the roll.
Dr. Bryant,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Ms. Vera,
Yes.
Vice President Ifker,
Yes.
President Rock.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next, good evening to our student liaisons, Adam Barakat and Nefertari James. Would you two please share your student liaison report with us?
Good evening, board. This week, the West Orange football team returns to NJSIA North 1 Group 5 sectional final after a big win over Livingston. The score was 21-0. They'll face PCTI in the championship game on Friday, November 14th. The boys soccer team will compete against Montclair High School in the NJSIAA North Jersey Section 1 Group 4 state finals. Our PE teachers, Ms. Graziosa and Ms. Fleck, continue to inspire students by running marathons around the world together, running in the NYC Marathon and Berlin Marathon.
Some beautiful moments to take note of is when the Edison Middle School did an environmental cleanup, showing their love and care for the environment. There was a Broadway night recently held, and they fundraised money for Broadway Care, which was very emotional and inspirational. And don't miss The Anarchists by Max Frisch on November 14th and 15th at 17 p.m. Tickets will be $15 at the door or online. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Moore, it is now time for your report. Would you please share your superintendent's report with us?
Yes, good evening, everyone, and thank you, President Rock. I'd like to take a minute to talk about the election day. Following the events that took place in our district and at other polling locations across New Jersey, on Election Day, November 4th, it has become apparent that the administration must revisit how polling in our schools affect our school schedule. This is not a new discussion, as we tried to not have polling in our schools, but obviously we couldn't do so and we had to have it. But last week's events have underscored the importance of taking a closer look at how our schools district can meet the 180-day requirement for our students so they can receive instruction while now closing for all elections. Historically, the school district closed for high turnout presidential elections, but remained open for other low turnout election days. When open, We have always implemented safety measures to allow this to occur. However, considerations now are being made to close on all days when elections take place in our schools. But please keep in mind that every closure requires a makeup day, necessitating careful calendar planning while also prioritizing students' instructional time. I take this moment, though, to thank our Board of Ed members, our teachers, our students and parents for their continued partnership and support as we work together with our West Orange PD, who I'd like to thank, keeping our schools safe for all occupants, including students, staff, faculty, and visitors alike. It was not easy, but the political climate in which we are approaching and which we face today seem to be appear to be very unsafe, and we will not put our students and teachers in harm's way. I would like to also remind the public, this is moving on to a new topic, forgive me, but that was tough, that election day. But I'd like to move on to strategic planning. I'd like everyone that this week on Thursday, the 13th, our community can provide their input for our district's 5-year strategic plan. The forum will take place at West Orange High School, and we hope that you can attend in person. And it will be from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. For anyone who cannot attend in-person sessions on the 13th, we do have an online survey open now and will remain open after the 13th, and will be available for people to contribute their thoughts and suggestions. Okay, moving on. We now move on to the highlight of the evening, and that's our assessment presentation. And I would now like to turn the floor over to the Director of Assessment, Accountability, and Intervention, Ms. Michelle Martino, who is here to present our annual assessment for the district. Board over here. Yeah.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Michelle Martino. This is loud for me. I don't usually use a mic. I am the Director of Assessment, Accountability, and Intervention for the district. And tonight we are going to go through the data from our spring 2025 assessments. I'd like to thank you all for coming, specifically our board members, Mr. Rock, Dr. Ifker, Dr. Bryant, Mr. Stevenson, and Ms. Vera. I appreciate all the support, the guidance, and the trust that you have put in me in this role. I also would like to recognize our central office staff, of course, Mr. Moore, Ms. Flowers, Ms. Connie Salambino, and our supervisors who worked tirelessly with me on this presentation, gave extreme attention to the data. They collaborated with me, worked through it, and I think it really speaks to the commitment that our administrators have to our staff, our community, and of course, our students, using the data specifically for our direction for our department work for this year. Under the consistent and stable guidance from Mr. Moore, I think we are moving in the right direction. And as we move through the data, I hope you will see that as well. So specifically this evening, we're going to look at the data from the NJSLA as well as the dynamic learning map. The NJSLA is given in ELA for grades 3 through 9, and it is given in math 3 through 8, and then also algebra 1, algebra 2, and geometry. Our NJSLA in science is specifically given in grades 5, 8, and 11. And the DLM is similar, only that it does not test ninth graders. But again, ELA in math and science in those specific grades. When we're speaking about NJSLA in particular, ELA and math only, there are 5 levels of performance that the students are evaluated on. And specifically level 4 and level 5 are where we see proficiency. Just making note that 750 as a raw score is proficient and above. What varies is between levels 4 and 5. Depending on the grade level, depending on the test, what is considered a level 4 and what is considered a level 5 varies. But 750 and above is considered proficient in all of the NJSLA tests in ELA and math. Okay, we are going to begin with math, specifically math 3, 4, and 5. As I move through the presentation, I am going to structure it in that I will review the data first, discuss our grade level growth, look at cohort growth when that is relevant, and then I will go through what the current work is for each department and grade level. That is how I will structure the math and ELA and science. Okay, so looking at our math 3, 4, and 5, consistently we are performing above state proficiency levels. Again, you can see what is represented with met and exceeded are our level 4 and level 5 scores together. If you take a look at the data over the past 3 years for math 3, 4, and 5, in 2003, we implemented the data to drive instruction using iReady and specifically MyPath for that individualized learning. So you can see 2023 through 2025, we are showing consistent performance largely in math 3 and 4, and you see modest gains in math 5 as well. The next slide is specifically the state requires that we also report out on proficiency performance by ethnicity and race for each test. So you can see that proficiency data here. Similarly, we report out on specific subgroups of students with disabilities, economically disadvantaged, as well as multilingual learners, and their proficiency performance is represented here for math 3, math 4, and math 5. As I move through the presentation, you may notice sometimes that there will be a color block not represented. That is largely because if there are fewer than 10 students represented in that category, we do not report to protect the identity of our students. Okay. For math 6, 7, and 8, you'll see here as well, we are above state proficiency percentages in math 6. And if you look at math 7 and math 8, we are largely about equal with the state plus or minus a percentage point. Also of note, math 7 and math 8 do not represent the entire grade level. It is there where we see the split out in subject matter, which I will go into in depth as we move through the presentation, but this is the first time that students do not take the exact same test. We see that in West Orange in 7th grade. Looking at our 3-year comparison for math 6, 7, and 8, we are showing significant growth in all 3 areas. It does speak to the adjustments that we've made in our professional development. It speaks to our focus in our middle schools. I will, without hesitation, say that we certainly have work to do. We are aware of that work. We are collaborating specifically with our content area supervisors, Ms. Berg and Mr. Abu Hakme, to make sure that we are addressing the individual needs of our students. But over the past 3 years, we have seen significant gains in Math 6, Math 7, and Math 8 as it applies to proficiency. Here is our ethnicity and race data for Math 6, 7, and 8. And our subgroup data as well. Again, making note that there are fewer than 10 in some categories. Moving on to Algebra 1, 2, and Geometry. Understanding that Algebra 1 represents students anywhere between grade 7 and even potentially into grade 10. Algebra 2, grades 8 through what could also be grade 11 if a student is taking a high school test for the first time in New Jersey. And Geometry is largely grades 9 through what could be all the way up to grade 12, again, in certain circumstances. Noting that Algebra 1 and Geometry are above state proficiency percentages. Algebra 2, while a strong performance, is slightly below as well. It is a target area for West Orange. It is, we noticed as we were going through the data, slight trends in Algebra 2. So it is definitely something we are looking at, which I will again go through again. Looking at our 3-year growth, specifically in the subject areas, we are showing very strong growth in all 3 areas. A snapshot comparison here, speaking to strong, effective teaching, improvements in teaching, consistency in teaching, very focused PD and positive adjustments to our curriculum. We are continuing this focus in math in our district with increased time in the middle school, which I will speak to in our department work. It is our 2nd year with a very heavy focus on our intent with math instruction. And I do think the use of iReady and the individualized learning, our ability to receive feedback in real time and adjust what we're working with our students is reflected here in this data. Still have work to do. We always do. We're certainly not going to become complacent by any means, but I think we're moving in the right direction. Again, we have our ethnicity and race proficiency data, as well as our subgroup data. Understanding that the amount of students taking Algebra 2 and Geometry is smaller, and thus, some of the data cannot be reported. Okay, I'm going to shift gears to our cohort data. It's a little bit different than just specifically looking at the subject area data. We're looking more in longitudinal growth over 3 years, answering questions, how are our students progressing as learners, specifically in math instruction? So when I say current 6th grade students, which is what is represented here, these are this year, 25-26, are 6th grade students. To date, they have taken Math 3, Math 4, and Math 5. These are our West Orange students. This does not include students who have chosen to go to a private school. This does not include students that have moved away. Similarly, our current 7th grade students all have taken the exact same 3 math assessments, Math 4, Math 5, Math 6. If you remember, we split out in 7th grade. So when we look at our 8th grade data here, we have some students who took Math 5, Math 6, Math 7. But we also have some of our current 8th grade students that took Math 5 in 5th grade, took Math 6 in 6th grade, even if they were in pre-algebra, and then they took Algebra 1 in their 7th grade year. Just understanding how the math data splits out. And sometimes if you look only at the subject area data, you may get a different idea of the proficiency of the grade level as a whole, which is where I'm going to move. When we look specifically at those 71 students that took Algebra 1 in 2025, we can see they were consistent across 98.6% proficient across in Math 5, in Math 6, and also in Algebra 1. That was a long explanation. I'm going to move a little faster for the next one, but I just wanted there to be understanding here. So when we look at the proficiency rate of the class as a whole, we are about 50%, 48.7% for our current 8th grade class as a 7th grade cohort, about 50%. We split further when we look at our current 9th and our current 10th grade students. They had 3 potential paths that they could have taken: 6, 7, 8, 6, 7 Algebra 1, 6 Algebra 1, Algebra 2. And similarly, if you move through it with our current 10th grade students, some of them had the potential to take geometry. Again, the pure cohort data is a little different than when you look at the entire group of students taking those specific tests. And sometimes growth can look different when you're not looking specifically at those students. And again, these are students that still remain in West Orange in the 25-26 school year. As a class, our 9th grade cohort as 8th grade students were proficient in their math class combined 36.5%. When we look at our current 10th grade students as 9th grade students as a class, they are proficient at about 35%. I think our focus on Algebra 1, which has been a focus for the past, I would say, 3 years, and making sure that we are consistent in our instruction and utilizing the resources that we have, working with our teachers with the iReady program, it has proven to be beneficial for our students, which of course is always our goal. And when we look at our graduation readiness, this is how our state assesses our students. Are they ready to graduate with the NJGPA? In math, our current 12th grade students who are graduating in June, class of 26, we're showing approximately 57% graduation ready in math. We do expect that percentage to go up in about 3 weeks. I'm going to get the data from the fall NJGPA for some of our current 12th grade students. They either were absent last year, or there's a myriad of reasons why they wouldn't have taken the test in the spring. They took it in the fall. And so when that data comes in, this percentage should adjust. But in looking at the data, what we noticed as a team was that from 23 to 24 to 25, if we look specifically at the proficiency in math of our 9th grade students, we're growing. And that's what we're looking for. Again, we still have work to do. This is not to suggest that we are going to sit idly by. We recognize that without question. But when we look, we are looking at our percentages going from 23.7% proficient in math as a class to about 35% proficient in math as a class. And then, of course, if the trend continues, then the graduation ready percentage should increase as well. And so our goal is to make sure that our West Orange students are always on the upward trend. And so far, I think we're in the right space. I also think with our strategic plan, with the consistent vision of our superintendent, the consistency in our board, congratulations. I do think these are things that benefit our students and in turn our community, because with that shared vision, I think we can move as a team, which is largely, I know, what we want to do for all of our students. So this is the data. And now I would like to discuss what we're doing as a response to the data. So when we look at our areas of strength and focus, and I am not going to read every single one to you, understanding this will be posted on our website at some time tomorrow. So you can go through it point by point by point, but understand that Darlene Berg went through this data, all of our evidence statements, point by point, every single grade, every single school, looked at what she saw in terms of trends, recognize that our teachers are our strongest resource, and then really design the department work around that. So again, there's areas of strength, there's areas of focus in each of our grades that are always of importance. But specifically, I say, so what are we going to do, right? And so when we look at math 3 through 5, our department work specifically for this year, it's rich and busy. which is also something that I think should be noted. But just some points to note: we are continuing to work with our math coach in the district, coaching cycles for our new teachers and for other teachers that may just need a little bit of guidance, specifically using actionable feedback for our teachers so that they can implement the strategies that the coach can share with them. We have noticed that there is a need to strengthen our first and second grade foundational skills so that they translate into a stronger foundation coming into those tested grades, which is also important. Co-teaching and working together, collaborating on strategies that are best practice in our classroom, working cross-curricular, not only with science and social studies, but also with Felix Plata, our world language and ESL supervisor, providing sheltered English instruction for our teachers. He provides refreshers each year. I think we just finished up the 3-day sheltered English instruction strategies that I know Darlene is very involved with in order to help her teachers utilize those strategies in math. Also, our multi-tiered systems of support, always a focus and have been for the past 4 years, specifically looking at our Title I schools and offering extended intervention in math with our Do the Math program. I know that that is a focus this year as well. But one of the things that is a little different this year that I think is going to be incredibly fruitful is that Darlene is working with our consultants from Curriculum Associates and specifically with our building principals to design professional development for the buildings based specifically on building need. So consistency across our schools is always going to be a focus, but understanding what each building needs at a specific time, I think can really help us identify where the gaps exist for our students and work through those gaps together with carefully targeted design professional development for our teachers. Really looking at the data to say specifically, this is what we need and this is how we're going to address it. Similarly, in math 6 through 8, middle school is a focus for us. There's been a lot of change in our middle school this year. And again, there are specific strengths and weaknesses that we see. We were sitting in a meeting, Darlene, Imad, and I, and we were noticing that division in 5th grade is a little bit of a focus, but it's also a focus in 6th grade. So how can we work together to kind of bridge the gap and get that vertical articulation in line? And so I know our team is focusing on things like that as well, building those skills and identifying the gaps at all levels. We, again, have a large change in our middle school this year, which has proven to be quite positive from the feedback that we've received so far. We are taking time to go through those changes. We are eliminating one of those transitions where we often see a dip in proficiency in our students. So I think that that is always also going to help us with the consistency that we will see in our buildings with our students who are in one space for a longer period of time. The investment in the middle school model has also led to an increase in instructional time in math, which we noted in our workshop or lab at the middle school level, where we focus specifically on the prerequisite skills necessary for students to achieve at grade level. And this extra time in math is specific for students and what they need in small group instruction several times a week. So I do think that investment in our middle school math program and that focus on building a strong foundation, which is also what we talked about in our younger grades, is something that you're going to see, particularly if you have middle school age students. We are strengthening the instructional consistency for our students, using our iReady diagnostic to target instruction. And I do always thank our board for the support with our academic support team being fully staffed at the middle school, which is a recent add-on, and it is helping with our tier 2 and tier 3 supports at the middle school that up until about 2 years ago, we did not have. So we're starting to see the results of that support as well. And I'm grateful to that, working directly with them frequently. In addition, the small group instruction, hands-on activities to strengthen the problem solving and understanding that in our math program, we're utilizing a lot of literacy skills as well. So there's that focus. Algebra 1, again, there's several areas of strength and some areas of focus as well that we're working through with our teachers. I'm not going to go through every single bullet, but I do think that it is of note that the department work is focused on pacing to make sure students are getting exposure to what they're going to see on the test in the spring, strengthening the retention that comes along with that, providing regular opportunities for students to be exposed to questions that they may see on the test, not just NJSLA, but NJGPA as well. And we're utilizing iReady specifically in our Algebra 1 classes to identify those gaps and implementing a workshop model as well at the high school level for some of our Algebra 1 students that fit into that criteria to give them that boost and the extra time in math to address the prerequisite skills that are necessary, targeted interventions that they may possibly need and not have specifically in their schedule the way that they did at the high school. When we looked at Algebra 2, I noted there were specific drops in Algebra 2, and so that has become an area of focus for us as well. We want to look at our curriculum, where are our students falling short? And again, while they're achieving at a high level in Algebra 2, how can we make it higher and stronger for all of our students? I'm going to take a breath. We're going to move to English Language Arts, which is a little bit more linear than math. So ELA, I'm going to look at the elementary level, 3, 4, and 5. English is different in that every student takes the exact same test based on the grade level in which they are in. So unlike math, there is no split. We see our proficiency levels, again, in those who met and exceeded, and in grades 3, 4, and 5, we see consistent performance above state proficiency percentages. We are growing or staying consistent over the past 3 years. That's negligible, not even a percentage in our ELA 5. We have a very teacher-focused approach in our ELA classes. We are in the second year of implementation of a new program in the elementary school, and we are doing really well. Our teachers are not losing stride at all. I will speak specifically on how we're working through that as when we talk about our department work, but we are able to address the needs of our students with a rich curriculum and a program to support that as well. Looking at 6 through 9, again, we are above state proficiency percentages across the board in grades 6 through 9 in ELA. And we are either growing significantly, which you see in 6th and 7th grade, or consistently in 8th and 9th. This is our data based on ethnicity and race in terms of proficiency performance percentages. And our subgroup data. Students with disabilities, economically disadvantaged, and our multilingual learners. When we talk about cohort data, it's a little different in ELA because, again, it's much more linear. Forgive me for my light colors. I fell into a pastel space, and our older projector sometimes loses that. But if you follow along with me here and you look at our the way this chart reads, you see how the students performed in 3rd grade, how they performed in 4th grade, how they performed in 5th grade. They are our current 6th grade students, and you'll see growth in that cohort of students at the tune of about 34%. Similarly, when we see 4th through 6th grade, we're growing modestly. One transition there from 5th to 6th grade. When we look at 5th to 7th, this is where we see our largest dip. This is where we would have recognized 2 transitions that will be different now based on our new middle school model. I think that's important to note that over the years, we have always seen a dip during transitions. And one way we can combat that is by keeping our students stable in one school for 3 years. Again, when we see 6th to 8th, we're seeing large growth. 7th to 9th, a slight dip, one transition there. But when we look at our data for graduation readiness at 84%, again, that does not include the students who took the NJGPA in the fall. So we do expect that that 84% of our current class of 2026 will increase. There was extreme growth from 9th to 11th grade, and we are proud of that and hope to continue as our 9th grade scores, like we discussed, continue to increase. That if that trend continues, then our graduation readiness will also continue to increase. I'm going to look at this a little differently. I have areas of strength and focus for 3 through 9 here, which again, I will not go through every single one, but I will discuss one thing that we did see throughout all of our grade levels in ELA is the need to focus on analysis, the depth of analysis, and the increase in understanding and comprehension, specifically in our writing. So that trend really was a thread throughout grades 3 through 9 and did dictate where we're going with our work. Okay. So if we look at grades 3 through 9, our department work is largely focused on a new model this year. Again, speaking to the investments that we've made in changing the way we structure our reading specialists and coaches, we are able, in our 2nd year of implementation of a new literacy program, and in the midst of a fiscal crisis, we are still able to provide guidance and support to our teachers who are still learning a new program through the model of having dedicated instructional coaches for our grade spans across 7 schools. It also speaks to the consistency that we like to see across all 7 schools when we have a singular focus under the direction of Beatrice Hanratty. I think we are able to hone in on where the consistency may not exist and utilize our instructional coaches to help with that. In addition, we have 4 dedicated reading specialists who are able to provide tier 3 support to students who may need extra support, in addition to our academic support staff who are able to service all 7 buildings as well. So that model has allowed us to continue with very strong, valuable PD. Specifically, we received feedback after the October 13th District PD Day, and it was overwhelmingly positive. Teachers spoke about how valuable they found it to receive the professional development from their colleagues who understand not just what the program offers, but what the program offers and what we need in West Orange in our grade span. So I did think that that was incredibly positive, and it was a shift that I think took a little getting used to, but I do think we're running, and it has proved to be very positive based on the feedback that we received from October 13th. When we look at our middle school, again, I know that Dr. Alcindor is very focused on our writing skills, specifically looking at our nonfiction writing. He has reached into our Newsela subscription, and our teachers are now receiving a monthly curated list of nonfiction pieces with specific interest for our students that allows them to focus on their own interests, pick specific items to read, and then write about, again, with the focus on writing in depth and analyzing further using particular vocabulary and language across all 3 grade levels. At the high school, again, writing is a focus, high interest nonfiction is a focus, allowing our students exposure to test questions that they will see on our new NJSLA, which is coming in the spring, as well as the NJGPA. Cross-curricular focus as well is something that we're working through. I'll speak a little bit about that when we talk about science, but we want to be able to use the resources that we have in district to provide resources for our students without having to constantly seek outside. And so that is something that is a focus for us as a district and not just as a department. We're getting there. Science grades 5, 8, and 11. Different rating scale. There's only 4 levels. There are not 5 levels like in ELA and math. Understanding that students that fall in proficient and advanced proficient make up what we would consider our proficiency percentage. We have, we're above state. We're above state in all 3 grade levels, noting we still have work to do. Looking at our growth over the past 3 years, we're showing significant growth in grades 5 and 11 and consistency in grade 8. But again, we are focusing our energy on our science instruction to make sure that our students are prepared for this assessment. When we look here, we have our ethnicity and race data for science 5, 8, and 11, as well as our proficiency data for our subgroups in 5, 8, and 11. Areas of strength and focus. In grade 5, there were certain domains where we did very, very well and domains where we needed work. But what we are looking at is the implementation of the PAIR assessment, which provides a pre and post diagnostic in grades 4 and 5 so that teachers can, similar to iReady, identify our strengths, identify our gaps, and work through providing what students need with that actionable data. In addition, we are looking at the science curriculum at the elementary level and making sure that whatever we bring in, because the current curriculum is to be discontinued, is in alignment with our state standards, but again, also utilizes resources that we have in the district so that we can address what we need in science without necessarily having to seek out a brand new program on which we would be training our teachers. So we're in the work of looking through our curriculum that way, cross-curricular. Similar with grade 8, what we noticed was that we need a lot of support in our 7th grade science because much of the areas that showed area of focus in 8th grade are topics that exist in 7th grade. So we are strengthening that, working with our teachers there, and specifically looking at the claim evidence reasoning across all grade levels. Again, it speaks to the writing and the depth of writing, the comprehension and the analysis in writing, which does link to our ELA focus as well. In 11th grade, similar, looking at grades 9 through 11 in order to review the courses and access the data. PAIR assessment is also being used there to help us guide instruction. In the newly written curriculum, which was approved in 24-25 for science, they are already addressing the claim evidence reasoning focus and inserting common assessments at the end of every single unit. So those assessments, I think, are going to be a focus to make sure they are really directly addressing all of the gaps that we're finding based on the PAIR assessment. We're going to use all of that together, similar to how we do the performance-based assessments, those common assessments at the end of each unit across our grade levels as well. Okay. Our dynamic learning maps are given to our students that present with the most significant cognitive disabilities. The DLM does provide them the opportunity to demonstrate their abilities in ELA, math, and science. About 1% of the students in West Orange, total population, take the DLM, not tested population, our total population, about 1%. And this is only the 2nd year that we've actually been asked to report out on this data, and I'm incredibly proud of it, and I hope you are too. And I really feel like I'm saving the best for last here. So this is our data for our math, understanding that I combined our grade spans so that I could actually report the data to you. Otherwise, we would have had fewer than 10. So you'll see it represented in grades 3 through 5, as well as grades 6 through 8 and 11. Again, for levels: emerging, approaching, at target, and advanced. This is our math data. This is our data for ELA, again, through the grade span. But this is of note, and I am very, very proud of it. I want to just draw attention to our math scores for our DLM students and the unbelievable growth that we were able to show in 1 year. I do think that it speaks a lot to our educators. It speaks to our special education department under the direction of Connie Salambino and Dawn Ribeiro and Kristen Gogarty Fitzgerald. Their commitment to our students, to all of our students, regardless of how they learn, and it seeks to encourage their strengths and work through their strengths and help them achieve based on their strengths. And so I do think that this speaks to that work and the collaboration that we do with all of our supervisors. I know that our supervisors that are here this evening have made a very focused point on working in hand with our special education supervisors to make sure that we're representing all of our students in our curricular writing, as well as our professional development for our teachers. We do always include our special education staff and seek to understand what they need, as it may be different from what our general education teachers need. Also in science, again, reporting all the grades together, 5, 8, and 11, and showing significant growth here as well in just 1 year. And the importance of diverse learning here in West Orange that goes beyond anything that really, I think, a test can show. But I do think that this is data on which we should be proud, for which we should be proud, and recognize that we do go to great lengths to make sure all of our students are achieving at a level that we are proud of here in West Orange. So when we look at what the continued work is here in West Orange, multimodal instruction, of course, using a variety of strategies, of course, but I also would like to draw attention to the last bullet on this slide, because I do think it speaks to our board's commitment and to our superintendent's commitment in making sure that we are still developing rich curriculum for all of our students. Specifically, we are writing this year a district autism curriculum for our kindergarten through 5th grade students. Even in the face of a fiscal crisis, we still have a responsibility to all of our students here in West Orange. And I think that the focus there and the commitment to our students speaks to our leadership. It speaks to the vision that we have in West Orange, and it's certainly something that I'm proud to be part of, and I would hope that everybody in the community is as well. I know it was long. I appreciate your engagement with me. If there are questions, I think we're going to set up a little differently for those questions, but I would like to thank you again. Am I on?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much for
Thank
that,
you.
Ms. Martino. Going to open it up to questions from the board. Start at the end with Dr. Bryant, if you have any.
Yes, sure. Thank you, Ms. Martino, for such a thorough and specific presentation. Those are my love languages, so I appreciate that. I also appreciate that you have named clearly the opportunities for transferable skills, particularly when it comes to informational texts in our English, social studies, sort of our content heavy classes versus our math classes, and thinking about how we get kids walking, writing and thinking across the curriculum in those ways. So I look forward to seeing what that is. I do have a question, and you may not have an answer now, and
I
I'm
will try
happy
my
to
best.
engage later. what are you doing to ensure that the content being taught and assessed is happening in the sequence that the board approved curriculum sort of prescribe? Would love to learn more about that, how you know it's happening, sort of how you guys are doing that.
There's a number of ways that I can speak to a little bit, but I'm going to defer to my supervisors who I'm meeting with this week, and I will
Excellent.
specifically ask them and get back to you. But on a surface level, I think we are observing. How about now? We are observing them in our classrooms. We are working through our coaches, I think, that are in our classrooms a lot more. Certainly our building leadership, our principals, and getting feedback from them, what they see in the classroom on the surface level there. In terms of making sure we are in lockstep with our sequence in our curriculum, that I will speak to on Wednesday when I have my meeting with all my supervisors, so I can give you a very direct answer on how they're doing it.
Thank you. I'd appreciate that.
Sure.
Mr. Stevenson?
Thank you, President Rock. Ms. Martino, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for your work on behalf of the district. Thank you for your transparency in indicating that there is much work to do. I think that is true, even in what is some growth among our data. To follow up in terms of what Dr. Brand alluded to, in terms of this kind of cross-curricular, I won't call it mapping, but kind of this cross-curricular integration, there seems to be interspersed throughout this ELA challenge. And I call it an ELA challenge, not to say that there haven't been gains in ELA, but to say that challenges that our students are having are reflective of ELA challenges. When we look at iReady, which is a very informational text math curriculum, and students being able to interpret questions, multi-stage questions that are being asked of them, we see it reflected in our science. Again, being able to go through the requirements of science, to be able to write and analyze text, specifically informational text, specifically nonfiction text, speaks directly to what may be some challenges early on within the district.
I'm just getting it.
No problem. In K through 5, where obviously, you know, the district and this board made a concerted effort to change ELA curriculum. And while the public may not understand the difference between what we say is balanced literacy versus structured literacy, it may not know all of the particulars. You know, one of my concerns, as this board has discussed fidelity of implementation of curriculum, is in the work that you outlined as department work, and your reference to budgetary crisis that is likely inevitable. How do you feel as a district we have the capacity to do the department work, do it effectively, do it efficiently, so that we're able to make sure the gains are, one, sustainable, and that we begin to approach proficiency not in the context of surpassing state proficiency, but creating a community articulated proficiency that we believe reflect the capacity of our students in West Orange.
A West Orange bar, shall we say, right? We'll look at what we're doing in West Orange. So a couple of things. First, I think our focus on writing across the district is very important. I think specifically at the higher levels where we are getting into that nonfiction text and reaching our students through areas of interest to them, right? Nonfiction text is tough sometimes to get through, specifically for younger adults. So I do think that focus is going to help us. I also think at the elementary level, with the implementation second year of a new program, I think our coaching model is brilliant. I mean, to not be dramatic, but I do think it is speaking to consistency. I think it is speaking to the vision. I think it is speaking to the depth that we need to see in our students, that it goes beyond it. And when we have specific individuals working across all of the schools who are heavily ingrained, not only in having written the curriculum, but now in also teaching our educators the richness of the curriculum, I do think that that's going to benefit us. And I'm excited to kind of see where that takes us, because in 2.5 short months, so far our feedback has been positive there. And people are reaching out to our coaches consistently for that guidance. And so that speaks to me as somebody more on the outside, as we're making the right decisions here, because our teachers, who we value and we want to support every step of the way, new program, old program, either way, we want to make sure our teachers feel confident in the classroom. When our teachers are reaching out, that tells me we're doing the right thing. So I do think the coaching model is going to help us as well, because I agree with you. State proficiency maybe is not only what we should be striving for, because we've done that already. We need to go beyond that, and it'll speak to what our community values. And I certainly think it speaks to what we value as a team, specifically ingrained in the education.
And lastly, this is a comment, not a question. As I look at the slide and the demographic data, it still remains concerning now 5 years on the board. The great variance in the performance of subgroups, particularly our African-American students and Hispanic students, given that they are the largest percentages of our students. And there's a great variance between their rates of proficiency compared to other subgroups. And so it makes me think about how, as a district, how as a board, we can be more engaging of the community from an advocacy standpoint, to try to ensure that parents have base information about curriculum and instruction and what kids should be learning, and that our schools are engaging parents so that parents are aware, I wouldn't even say engaged, but simply aware of what their children are learning, when they're learning it, and how they can best support. Because those numbers, some of those numbers, to be quite frank, are stark, and we should be focusing on how we begin to really look at that from an equity standpoint as a district, given that those numbers are likely to continue to emerge demographically, and we should be responding to the particular needs of our students, particular needs of communities, so that we have an education system that serves them. So thank you.
Just two brief questions. First of all, that was a very thorough presentation. I can't imagine. There were two things that jumped out at me. You said that the graduation students in 12th grade, 56% were graduation ready. Yet our graduation rate is percent.
Yeah.
I don't understand that.
There's 3 pathways in which students can graduate. The first is the NJGPA that speaks to their graduation readiness based on a test. So that's that percentage that I spoke about. There's also second pathways, which are a variety of different tests, SAT, ACT, the PSAT. If they score above a certain threshold they're considered graduation ready via the second pathway. And then some of our students who learn in non-traditional ways have the opportunity to provide a portfolio assessment for their graduation readiness, and that would be considered the third pathway. So when we look at all of that together, that's how we get to the 90% graduation.
I'm sure that makes me feel a little better.
Mm-hmm.
56 is still pretty low, right? We're not really comparing apples to apples here. 56% of the 12th graders graduation ready.
Based on a singular test, yes. A standards-based assessment, yes.
Okay. The second thing I wanted to ask you was, something that jumped out is that the proficiency rate in geometry is like 30% higher than average. Any idea why that is?
So that's a very small cohort of students who take the geometry test, and it's only that one path that you'll see in that data. the students who took Algebra 2 in 8th grade and Algebra 1 in 7th grade, our strongest math students in the district, and the number of students who take the geometry is far less than the number of students who take the Algebra 1.
Good evening, everyone. Ms. Martino, congratulations. Your presentation was very, I will say, very transparent. And thank you, Mr. Stevenson, Dr. Bryan, for the, for the questions and the clarification you have with Dr. Ipker. And the only thing I have to say is congratulations. Congratulations to all the teachers, the supervisors, and the students for the achievement. I could see from last year, the iReady, that it was implemented in 2023. We can see the results now. And I understand, all the work that the teachers complete last school year with the, with the extra time, doing the, I will call the, the tutoring during the break. It was, we can see the results now. We really need to work a little bit more with the ELA, as you say, but we always have students, ML students, the students with disabilities, that they have to be, focusing to the how they are going to implement the new techniques or the new curriculum or the one that is already used in place. I really like the coaching and the PD with the teacher to teachers, but it's excellent. We save a little bit of money on that. And at the same time, this is what we really need to know, what the students need, focusing to the gap and the students' needs according to the, the level and according to the school that they attend. Once again, thank you for the information. It was wonderful. And, I really was very pleased with that information. See, that we are right there growing.
Moving in the right direction.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Yes.
I just wanted to give a shout out to Hayden, because last year he was like, just trust me, I have a vision. And I gave him a little side eye. And here we are. And so I'm very happy to see the specificity, the clarity, the transparency, and to see the first steps in the vision that you have. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martino. My colleagues have said a lot, so I'll just say that I agree that it looks like we're going in the right direction. We still have some work to do. I would also say that we made some significant changes last year that, as we continue to push forward with those, we'll hopefully reap more dividends in the next few years. So keep focus on that. And thank you again for this presentation. And again, as Dr. Bryan said, thank you, Hayden, for your work, because it's a reflection of your leadership here.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all the support very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate your all your hard work, and thank you to the supervisors. And again, once again, thank you to the teachers. I know, for just to speak a little bit about our supervisor, our administrators, and our teachers, it is tough to transition to do new things. People walking into classrooms, giving directions, coaching, and advising. It isn't easy, but I want our teachers and our administrators to make sure they mutually work together to come up with the answer to this board. The answers within our district. We have the best people. Our teachers are strong. Our supervisors are strong. It's all about our collaboration and remembering that we're West Orange together. And that's the focus of our work. Together is where we're going to have the answers, and we're going to be able to strive. I know a lot of people like outside consultants and people coming in, but if you've been here as long as I have, you would understand that the quality that we actually have in our buildings and our administration have some answers. The people I work with they research, they read, they care, but there's nothing like the compassion and the obligation that the administrators and the teachers feel for our students, along with myself. we're one big team, and it's great to see that. And that's really no big vision and no special thing. It's just believing in it. And we're going to strive and do better as we go on. I have all the confidence in us. So I appreciate that. So thank you all. At this time, I would like to present the harassment, intimidation, and bully report. Throughout the district, we had 4 incidents of investigations of HIB, and 2 have been founded. And President Rock, thank you. That concludes my report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Moore. And I do want to, you started your report there with talking about Election Day. It seems like a long time ago, but I do want to commend you and our local law enforcement for how swiftly you were able to verify the safety of our buildings, to reopen the polling places, and to prepare for the school day before students arrive. So good job on that. I know it was a stressful day, but you handled it well. We'll move on to committee reports and comments from the board. Anything from Dr. Bryant?
No.
Mr. Stevenson?
Thank you, President Rock. Just want to suffix what you said with respect to Mr. Moore's leadership on Election Day, his effectiveness and efficiency with respect to how a situation that no one would expect, he was able to respond to in a way that I think really demonstrates his leadership and his commitment to West Orange. Also want to commend Mr. Moore on his strategic vision for the district as he and his team meets this week with the community about the district's strategic plan. Again, just unprecedented in how he has engaged the community. I think really is just indicative of who he is as a person, and more importantly, who he is as a leader for our community. And lastly, with respect to the student achievement data, you know, we're in what is an inevitable issue with state funding, but the reality is that this is the work. We work to educate children, and so while several things are under consideration, have been under consideration, given we've had this constraint of state budget for the last 3 years, with respect to implementation of a new science curriculum, which was held off last year and is under consideration moving forward. The board has voted to implement ELA curriculums at the elementary school level and then a math curriculum at the elementary school level, and has sunk additional resources into our middle schools. There are a lot of resources being put into academic performance and proficiency. And I would just say we have to continue to make those investments and ensure that the investments that have been made are seen to fruition into a place where it bears fruit for our students in our community. And so I would just say to our board colleagues and to you, Mr. Moore, that it's important as we move forward into budget season in the next few months, that we're cognizant of that, we're aware of that, that we do not forestall and shift away from those investments because the community has entrusted us to do so, and that those resources are continued to be put there to ensure that we do not in any way deviate from those investments, because they're critical to ensure that our number one our constituency, meaning our students, get what they need. They get what they need in the classroom with good materials, and that their teachers are armed with the professional development that they need to ensure that students are given those requisite skill sets to be proficient, not for an annual state assessment, but be proficient as they progress through life on and through our system, and then whatever their post-secondary experience is. So as we move into some difficult days with the budget, I just want to be mindful and share with my board colleagues that we're all mindful of the investments that need to continue to be made to ensure that our primary responsibility to educate students continues in full and in earnest. Thank you, President.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Anything from Ms. Vera? Okay. Mr. Ipper.
Okay, very briefly, just to say that it's always been our commitment, the 5 of us, that whenever someone sends us an email or stops us on the street or whatever, and they say, hey, what about this? You have to look at that. We always take it seriously. And the commitment and the promise is that we always bring it up in our closed session in front of the 5 of us, plus Ms. Flowers, and of course, our superintendent, Mr. Moore. So just to run through a few things that were brought to my attention over the past month or two, there were issues about physical plants at various schools and parking and steps and this and that, and stipends and training for teachers with respect to racism and anti-Semitism. So all of those things that were given to me, I've now presented them to the board, and I can assure you that Mr. Moore takes them very seriously, and everything, I can't promise everything's going to be done today, or it's going to be addressed as you would like, but it's been given a full hearing, and I expect whatever needs to be improved upon, we'll do so. So keep the comments, the emails coming. We take that very seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ipker. I want to start my board president's report by first congratulating Dr. Bryant and Mr. Ipker for their election victories last week. This board, as constituted, has worked together for about the last 18 months. Since then, 4 of us has stood for re-election and been returned to the board to continue to serve. So I think it's a sign that the community has put their trust in not only Mr. Stevenson and I last year, but you two this year, and that there is some faith in what we are doing along with Mr. Moore here. So we look forward to another productive year next year. And as I've said before, many productive years for Mr. Moore, who will never be allowed to retire. Next, I would like to share a little bit about Edison Middle School. Edison Middle School continues to successfully enjoy transitioning to our new configuration of the 6, 7, and 8 middle school model. Housing grades 6, 7, and 8 has allowed our teachers to engage in conversations steeped in vertical articulation, which positively impacts instruction and learning for our students. In addition, the 8th grade students have been exemplary role models for our students in grade 6 and grade 7. We've seen school pride rise in large part due to the sports program. Students who are enrolled in accelerated courses are flourishing, along with the rest of our Edison scholars. Time for fun has been made with Edison's Walkathon and Harvest Days, in addition to conducting student council elections. Edison has embarked on a great 2025-2026 school year. All right, and last, I do want to speak a little bit about state funding. Got some notes on my phone here, which I usually don't have out during board meetings, but that's why I have it here, because I typed up a few things. The district shared about a week ago, and you may have heard from other sources as well, that the New Jersey Department of Education is currently conducting a survey and collecting feedback about the school funding formula. In this past budget year, the governor made some unilateral changes to that formula, some of which were good for us, and I'll talk about those in a minute. But they were one-time changes implemented by the governor. They were not set in statute, and currently the DOE is collecting feedback to decide should this be done again, and possibly should these things be written into statute moving forward. So it is important that we all speak up and share our feedback with the state. I wanted to take a minute to share the specific topics, though. So if you're not familiar with them, explain what the topic is, give you a little bit of context so you know how you should answer that. And again, how this has helped us here in West Orange and why some of these changes are important moving forward. So there are 6 issues in the kind of general topics included in the survey. The first topic is called local resource measures, and essentially it's the way that the state measures our wealth. There's 2 factors in that: our equalized valuation, how much the homes in town are worth, and 2, the gross income of everyone that lives in town, how much money we make, which then translates into income taxes collected by the state. The first question they asked about those was, should this value be averaged over time? Previously, they looked at one specific year and said, this is what your valuation and income is in this year, and that's how they calculated our local fair share, which in a normal year isn't a big deal, but in some years, so not this past year, but the year before is a good example of that. If one year changes drastically from year to year, our income that year happened to go up by a very significant amount, that drove up our fair share, which in turn drove down our aid. So by taking these values and averaging them, this year they averaged them over 3 years. Potentially they could average it over a longer period of time. That smooths out those changes so that if it goes up over the course of 10 years, it'll just go up a little bit each year rather than jumping drastically from year to year. So it is important that those values be averaged. They don't just look one year to the other, because then there can be significant changes in our state aid from one year to the next. But the other 2 parts of this question that I think are important are, one, gross income should not be part of this measure. So the main source of revenue for school boards is local property taxes. So our revenue essentially comes from, among other small sources, the property tax that we levy on homeowners in West Orange. So there is a connection there between the home value and how much we can levy in taxes. But when someone in West Orange makes more money, there's no way for us to come and collect any of that. We cannot levy a tax on your income. To me, the ironic part of this is that when you make more money, you pay more income tax. That goes to the state. But then if our income goes up, that can make our local fair share go up and make our aid go down. So we're essentially being punished for the success of our residents who end up making more money in some years, whereas that income tax is collected by the state specifically for the purpose of offsetting property taxes. And so it to me is a fundamental disconnect between the purpose of the income tax and the way this works. And that so income should not be part of that equation at all. And in the comments, I would encourage you to say that they shouldn't use that at all. Then the last part related to local resource measures is that averaging is good because it eliminates outliers. But if valuations go up repeatedly by excessive amounts, that doesn't help. So the last 2 years, the valuations in town have gone up year over year about 10%. That means that on paper, everybody that lives in West Orange is very rich. But I'll tell you myself that I don't get to spend that paper. You know, since I bought my house, the value has gone through the roof. But if I sell it, I got to go buy another house that also costs an exorbitant amount of money. So just because the value went up 10%, we can't collect 10% more property taxes. We're still stuck with the 2% cap. And so at the end of the day, if we have a cap on how much we can raise the tax levy, the amount that our fair share also increases should also be capped. So that's an important way about how this should be calculated, that, right, if you're going to cap one thing, you got to cap both things. The second topic on this survey has to do with limits to annual changes. So previously there was no limit to the change in state aid. It could go up and down by any significant amount, depending on how it was calculated. This year, they put a 3% floor on the maximum reduction. In our case, that helped us quite a bit. Because of the way they changed some of the numbers, we ended up gaining a lot of money in one area, losing a lot of money in another area. But if they just straight ran the formula, we would have lost significantly more than the $1 million that we did lose. So our aid went down 3%, which was the maximum. So for us and for any district that potentially is going to lose money, I think it's important that is maintained. But a piece that's important there is the way they calculate that floor. So they calculated it based on the percentage of aid that we received last year. The problem with that is that different districts rely for different amounts on state aid to fund their budget. So we're not the most heavily reliant of all districts in New Jersey, but we have a significant amount of our operating budget that comes from state aid. So that 3% reduction converted to about 0.5% of our operating budget. Now, if you look elsewhere in Essex County, so a good example is Essex Fells, they get a very small amount of state aid, but they also lost 3% of their state aid. That correlated to 0.1% of their operating budget. So if you calculate it based on the percent of aid, we both lost the same amount, 3%. But when you look at the percent of the budget, we lost 5 times as much as them. So that the way that floor is calculated should be based on what that number represents as a portion of the budget.
That not only did proportionally we lost the same thing, but year over year, our structural deficit is exponentially greater than in comparison to Essex Fells and maybe other similarly situated districts. And so the impact to us was significantly greater than it would have been to some of those other communities, because even before we get our state aid numbers, we start each budget year with a structural deficit that can range anywhere from $8 to $10 million. And so for members of the community that may not understand that, is that before we figure out what it's going to be, what we're going to spend money on, we're $10 million in the hole even before Ms. Flowers begins her work with the superintendent to figure out where the allocations of dollars will go. And so that is something that some of the communities who may be similarly situated to an Essex Fells is significantly different than what we see in West Orange.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson, for giving me a break to drink some water there. The rest of this is a little bit shorter. That first section is the most complex. It takes a little talking through. Topic number 3 is tax levy flexibility. And this is where we have a 2% tax cap in law. There are currently very limited times when you can go above that 2%. One of the things people said during the last budget process was, why don't you just raise more money? And some districts were able to because they were raising below their local fair share. They were spending below adequacy. So those are the things that allowed them to have what's called tax levy flexibility and go above the 2%. We didn't meet those criteria. Now, I would rather we don't ever have to go above 2%. And I think the state should fully fund everything so that we don't have to. But in the event that there is some kind of either an aid reduction where we can point to this is why we need more money, or a specific cost driver that goes up an exorbitant amount, right, we have to have tools in the toolbox to make the decisions that, we can cut something, we can raise money, or we can rely on state aid. And if we don't have that flexibility of potentially increasing the tax levy, the only thing left is cutting. So I think it is important that there is some element of tax levy flexibility, as long as it's tied to a specific, right, the state took this money, so now you can potentially look at raising extra taxes to offset that. The fourth area has to do with transportation. There's a special categorical aid within the aid formula for transportation. And in theory, this is supposed to provide support for the students that we have to bus, both within our district, people that live more than 2 miles from their school, and students that we have to bus to private placements that are out of district placements for special education purposes. But in this current year, we received about $4 million in transportation aid. Our total cost for transportation, again, including that out of district placement as well as in-district busing, is about $17 million. So the state is not providing anywhere near what we need to provide transportation. And that's one of the big cost drivers. Every time we present the budget, we talk about transportation. A, is expensive, and then B, continues to go up rapidly. So obviously that the way that they're calculating transportation is not sufficient. Part of that is, right, we have what they call courtesy busing, which is something that we need in West Orange. We have hazardous routes that you can't walk up Pleasant Valley Way in some of those roads, and so the state doesn't necessarily calculate that as something they need to fund. But we can't afford to not provide the busing, so we're left with the bill. So somehow they need to relook at how they calculate that transportation aid, and they should be fully funding any reasonable transportation that we have to provide as a district.
In a community that geographically is larger than most other suburban communities in Essex County. So we have a fair number of students who do live more than 2 miles away from their school, and the state does not take into account some of the geographic challenges that a community such as ours has. And so I think to your point, President Rock, it's important for community members to voice that concern, and maybe the calculus changes in terms of how transportation allocations are based on geographic impediments and the percentage of students who live greater than 2 miles away from their schools.
Thank you. The fifth topic is special education aid. Previously, they used what is called census-based aid, which means that you would think that special ed aid meant you have this many students and it costs this much to educate them, so you get this much money. But instead, they said, let's look across the entire state, and this percentage of students are special ed, so we're going to apply this percentage to your population and give you money based on that. Now, if you're a district that has very few special ed students, that's a great thing. We have a great special ed program, so we attract a lot of people that want great services. We also do a good job of identifying them. But that then means that essentially we were punished by that census-based funding method, because our actual population was up here, the statewide average was down here, and we were funding all these students who needed additional services. Last year, they switched to funding special ed based on the actual enrollment. As a result, our special ed aid increased from 6 million to 11 million. So if it wasn't for that, our equalization aid had gone down significantly. We would have lost a lot more money. This is part of what offset that. But I think that goes to show that we were being underfunded in special ed incredibly, almost 50% of what we should have gotten based on the number of students that are here. I think of all the things that they changed, that's one of the most important ones. That, right, if we're going to identify and educate and support our kids here, the state should recognize that, and they should fund those programs so we can continue to provide those services. The last thing, which also relates to special ed, is what's called extraordinary aid. The state has a special line item for extraordinary cases of special education. Sometimes this is kids who are sent out of district and cost a lot of money. Sometimes they're like our autism program that Ms. Martino was talking about that requires a lot of staffing and extra costs. And so there's a certain amount of money put aside for that from the state that does not fully fund, again, what essentially we're putting out for these. And so they should be increasing that pot of money and more equally funding those needs to the district. So that is a kind of an overview of the 6 different topics. This is on YouTube for posterity's sake as you fill this out, but I will reduce this to writing so that Mr. Moore can share it either on the website or wherever he feels appropriate. The Department of Ed also is accepting written comments. I plan to write a formal letter. I'll share with the board before I submit that. I'll get that to you guys probably on Wednesday. If you have any feedback, I'll amend that, and we'll also share that with the public and share that with the Department of Ed.
Oh, no.
I was gonna say that the deadlines
Yeah,
are very
that's-
important. You can find the link to this on our Facebook page, and I'm sure we'll share it out again or make sure it's on the website somewhere visible for people this week. But the deadline to complete this is Friday. So it's good that we have this meeting today. I wanted to provide you all with a little bit of context so you understand what you're writing about and what you're doing. All right, you can just click a few things, which makes it very simple. You can add more context if you want. There's always a open box to write some additional language. But I would ask you all, please, a lot of people have said, how can we help? I think right now, this is the best way that we can all help is to voice our concerns about state funding. This is going to impact what our budget looks like in February when we find out how much money we receive. So we need to take this opportunity to speak up, and hopefully we'll have a more fair funding formula next year.
Thanks, Brian. Can I just add a little
Yes.
promo?
Mhm.
So in addition, there have been budget workshops. Thanks to those of you who have attended them. I got to attend one. It's great, learned a lot, really awesome for folks to come out. There are more coming up, November 19th, January 14th, and March 11th. They all take place at the Board of Ed building on the 2nd floor. And Ms. Flowers, what time are they? 6:30.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the board? Yeah.
I just wanted to say 2 things. First of all, I'm a bit of a C-SPAN nerd, so I'm going to watch this video either tomorrow or Wednesday in my office. But a lot of Board of Education meetings and other meetings do not go into this specificity. So I appreciate that very much. Because then I'm going to take a few notes and then I'll look smart and I'll seem like I know what I'm talking about. But the other thing is that I don't remember, but I don't think we were at this level of engagement last November. Were we? I don't think so. So that's a direct response to people saying, what can we do to help? Well, how can we make this better? So one of the 2 things that we talked about, which are most important, are starting earlier and be more transparent. So I think we're doing both of them. It doesn't mean it's not going to be rough once we hear in February what the governor's giving us, but we're in a better place now, I think, than we were last year. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. So there's no other questions from the board. That'll end my president's report. If you have questions about what I said, I'm not going to take individual questions, but we do have public comment coming up in a moment. So if you would like to say something or ask something there at the end, I'll clarify anything I said about funding that wasn't clear. So that brings me to questions from the public on agenda items only. Any community member who would like to make comments or ask questions, please come to the podium at this time. Please state your name and home address for the record, then begin your comments. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Do we have any members of the public here in the audience tonight who wish to make public comments?
My name is Larry Weintraub, 76 Cobain Terrace. I'm here as part of the West Orange Parents for Education. I was really thankful to hear your detailed discussion of the NJDOE survey. We have been promoting that through social media as well, and we did write up a written guide, which largely aligns with what you just mentioned. It's woparents.org/Trenton. So if folks don't want to wait for the written guide, we do have one from a group of us that went through and tried to do as best for West Orange as we can. I also wanted to emphasize the point that you made about town income as a part of the local fair share. I've done some calculations of my own, and it's more than $10 million that West Orange is losing as a result of that. approach to calculating the local fair share with no way for the education of our students to access that money at all. So for those who are are filling out those surveys and sending emails to the DOE, it would be a huge boon to West Orange and to other similar districts, although I do not believe any district is penalized quite as much as West Orange by this in the entire state. So, this is really important, and I'm really glad to hear the board share that information with the public. And so kudos to all of you for doing so. Thank you.
All right, seeing no one else for public comment on the agenda, we will move on to our resolutions. May I have a motion to approve personnel items A1 through A5?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ifker. Any discussion? All right. Hearing none, Ms. Flowers, would you please take the roll call?
Dr. Bryant,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Ms. Vera,
Yes.
Vice President Ifker,
Yes.
President Rock.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, next, may I have a motion to approve the curriculum and instruction items B1 through B5?
Motion.
Thank you, Dr. Bryant. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Vera. Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Flowers, please take the roll.
Dr. Bryant,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Ms. Vera,
Yes.
Vice President Ifker,
Yes.
President Rock.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, next, may I have a motion to approve the finance items, C, special services items A1 and B, and business office items B1 through 6?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Vera. Any discussion?
I just want to note, given Mr. Ifker's statement about inquiries from community members, I want to note in section 5 of C Finance that the business administrator board secretary is to submit a comprehensive maintenance plan, an M1 form for the West Orange Public School District in compliance with the Department of Education requirements. Just as a note that the analysis of physical plant needs is ongoing and that the district is aware of it, but to quote the public transit, if you see something, say something, because Ms. Flowers, the district board members, school building leaders need to know if there is something that presents itself in a way that needs to be of note with respect to our buildings. So thank you, Mr. Ifker, for raising that, and just wanted to point out to the community that maintenance plan is in our agenda tonight and submitted by Ms. Flowers as in her role as business administrator and board secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Any other discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Flowers, please take the roll.
Dr. Bryant,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Ms. Vera,
Yes.
Vice President Ifker,
Yes.
President Rock.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, finally, may I have a motion to approve reports, items D1 through 2?
Motion.
Thank you, Dr. Bryant. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Ifker. Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Flowers, please take the roll.
Dr. Bryant,
Yes.
Mr. Stevenson,
Yes.
Ms. Vera,
Yes.
Vice President Ifker,
Yes.
President Rock.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much to all of my board colleagues for that. Next up, we will have petitions and hearings of citizens for any agenda or non-agenda item that you wish to discuss. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Please approach the podium at this time and state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, we will wish you all a good night. Thank you very much. Our next board meeting will be held at 6:30 p.m. on December 15th, 2025. This meeting will be held in the West Orange High School Library Media Center. We will not be going into executive session after the close of this meeting. There will be no further business discussed and no additional action will be taken. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Vera. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Our meeting is now adjourned. We wish you a good night.